to order. And welcome members of the executive team, Superintendent Everwin, Secretary Treasurer Reed, Assistant Superintendent Kenzie, and Directors of Instruction, Braniff and Hunter. And from our partners, welcome Mr. Michael McEwen over here in the corner, representing the Saanich Teachers Association, Ms. Helena Tatar, online, representing the Saanich Administrators Association, and Ms. Nola Welch, online, I believe as well, representing QP 441. We have regrets from Trustee Holman, and Trustee Silzer is online. And I wish to acknowledge that this evening we're meeting on the traditional lands and territories of the Wasanich people, who have lived, learned, and worked on these lands since time immemorial, and we offer this acknowledgement as a step intended to encourage reconciliation. Trustees, is there a motion to adopt the agenda? Trustee Stelf, second by Trustee McMurphy. Is there any late item or proposed revisions to the agenda? Trustee McMurphy?
I'm not sure if it goes on automatically, but the referral from the...
My reading is that it is on automatically. Trustee McMurphy. So it will be added in. So Trustee Silzer will speak to that question in human resources. Sorry, there won't be a human resources report, but we will get to that. I'll call for that. All right. Are there any other late items or proposed revisions to the agenda? All in favor of adopting the agenda as circulated? Opposed? The motion is carried. Prior to this regular meeting of the board, we conducted an in-camera meeting and discussed personnel matters and business affairs. Moving to item 3, board meeting minutes. Referencing first the minutes of the regular meeting of March 16, 2022. Trustee McMurphy.
There's just a line missing on page 5. The motion at the bottom of the page, move Trustee McMurphy, point of order, and then it says amendment carried. There should be another line after that saying main motion as amended carried as well.
I'm trying to follow along. You're just a little ahead of me, okay, Trustee
right
McMurphy.
Right at the bottom of the page, it says amendment carried.
I see that. And
then there should be, as there is above, it says on the previous motion, main motion as amended carried. You just need to repeat that.
Right. All right. Trustees, is there any objection to including that addition in the minutes? All right. So done. Anything else with respect to the minutes? All right, then I declare that the minutes be adopted as amended with that change. And then we have the minutes of the special board meeting of April 7, 2022. Again, are there any errors or omissions with respect to those minutes? Hearing none, I declare that those minutes be adopted as circulated. There's no business arising out of the minutes. And we'll move then to presentations, delegations, and questions. First, presentations. We have 2 this evening. The first will be by Mr. McEwen, the President of the Saanich Teachers Association, and the second by Ms. Phillips of the Vancouver Island South Coast Council of BC. Just a reminder, trustees and those in attendance, that Policy 9 Board Operations provides that our presentations are 5 minutes at the most. When they're concluded, trustees may ask questions for clarification, and normally the issue is not dealt with further at the same board meeting. Mr. McEwen, if you would. Sure. Over here?
Over there? Okay.
Wherever you're comfortable.
Mr. McEwen. Yeah, I just have a couple things to read.
Do you want me to share the slide?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm having a little technical difficulties, so just give me a moment.
Somebody use up his 5 minutes.
Yeah, we're going to draw the clock down.
Slow down, Jason.
Yeah. Okay, I apologize. I've got it open, but when I go to the share window, I'm not seeing it. Oh, here it is.
Thank you. So, greetings, trustees, superintendent, senior staff, guests, people online. I'm honored to be here on the traditional unceded territory of the Savage people who have cared for these lands since time immemorial. I'm here to talk about notice to end practice, and I wanted to be clear about which notice to end practice we were talking about since there were two. So just to be really clear, we're talking about the one related to E14, filling vacancies, and C16A, teachers teaching on call. So the employer is taking the position that this is a strict reading of the contract and is simply reverting to what was intended. Slide. And I think, oh, that's not what should be up, but okay. I don't think you have the same presentation mode as I do, but anyway. The no BCTF type presentation would be complete without a bit of historical context. So in 1988, the first locally bargained contract occurred. In 1987, Saanich Teachers Association received its charter from the BCTF to act as its own local bargaining agent. The first contract was bargained the next year. And Elsie, do you know who signed the charter?
Yes, I do.
Did you want to share? All right. It was Elsie. At that time, the language relating to the two articles in question was established. And at that time, they were part of the same article. It was a list. It showed the order in which candidates would be considered for positions. So continuing contract teachers, then temporary teachers, teachers on call, and then teachers on call who had limited access or limited relationship with the district. And even then, we had commonly understood language that spoke to the necessary qualifications of applicants in order to win the position. So first we have the order that they're considered and then what they need to win. It's evolved slightly over the years, but now it's a pretty simple list. Academic preparation, certification and training, experience, past teaching performance. It's a list that doesn't include and never did include the word availability. So
we're just missing your slide, Mr.
Yes.
McCune. If you want to wait for that, that's quite all right.
Well, I can
That's
go on
your
to
choice.
the next part as it comes up again.
Your choice.
So our first concern is about redefining understood language. So where one party to a legal relationship has, by his words or conduct, made to the other a clear and unequivocal promise, this promisor is not allowed to go back on his word so long as it is inequitable for him to do so. Now, both the employer and the association have the right to issue notice to end practice in cases where practice is deviated from the collective agreement. In this case, the association sees no such deviation. Instead, the employer is attempting to redefine the understood language, to go back on his word in a way that goes against over 30 years of past practice and at an inequitable financial consequence to our members. So redefining language through the notice to end practice is a disappointing step, and we think an abuse of that process. Second concern is the effect on our vulnerable members. There are many concerns related to this notice, and chief among them is reducing the ability of young, primarily female, educators with the least job security to receive top-up while on maternity and parental leave. Not paying top-up for pregnancy and parental leave is the only way the association sees the employer achieving the significant savings that they said they would from this notice, and will affect teachers that are most junior in our association. They need to be protected. We've got many different examples, but one that I wanted to share was a teacher who decided that they liked where they were teaching. They wanted to stay there, but in order to stay there, they had to keep getting temporary contracts. And if they go on leave from that temporary contract and they've got 5, 7, 10 years experience in some cases, and they're not able to get that temporary contract, the portion of their contract that is continuing, they will receive some top-up, but they won't be able to get the top-up for the continuing portion because they chose to stay at a particular location with the expectation that this wasn't going to be a problem. The third concern that we have is the effect on the relationship between the association and the employer. With the threat of the notice to end practice, the association has already had to change some advice to members that are thinking about going on leave. Instead of saying that members should give notice well in advance to give more time for the employer to make plans and to find other people that are going to take the positions, we've had to look at the strict language of the notice requirements. We've had, instead of recommending that teachers give notice to both pregnancy and parental leaves at the same time, we've had to say, if this is going to be a financial hardship, you may need to make different plans. Instead of being able to access all Employment Standards Act leaves, the teacher may want or even need to forgo parental leave to make sure that they have sufficient income, especially in this expensive to workplace. One concern that the employer expressed had to do with planning. This notice and practice can make that planning even more difficult with the change in advice that the association has to give. Slide. All right. That's not what it looks like on mine, but so we have a request in 3 parts. So first is to remember, please remember that the employees that you plan not to hire are vulnerable teachers who hope to work, live, play, teach, and raise the children that are the reason that the Sandwich School District exists. You could reduce the harm that this has already caused. Even without removing the notice, the employer could take job applications and their associated leave requests on a case-by-case basis to make sure that the financial harms are mitigated for our most vulnerable members. And we had a lot of questions that we hope to get answers for from the employer during bargaining to understand where the employer was coming from, and we didn't get a lot of specific answers. But one of the questions that we asked and got an answer for was, did the board know what was happening with this notice? We were told that yes, they did. Our hope is that it was an equivocal sort of yes, and that details and potential negative effects were not part of your understanding. And therefore, with this understanding, we hope that you might rescind or recommend that this notice be rescinded. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McEwen. Are there any questions, trustees? Trustee Van Wel.
I'm wondering if staff has a comment on or an explanation for the estoppel notice given, if they can comment on it.
Superintendent?
For the reason for the estoppel notice?
The reason for the estoppel notice.
I would ask Director Reed, who is on the call this evening and has been listening, to perhaps comment on what was shared as the rationale at the table earlier. Director Reed?
Yes, thank you. The rationale provided at the table was that in part, we don't think that the parties contemplated, when the language was originally bargained, the state that we've reached today. And in many ways, the language is silent in terms of the ripple effects that the practice has become over time. What we've seen in recent years is that staff will take a leave from a position, and we as the employer need to backfill that assignment. With our previous practice, the one that we've served notice to end, we will have individuals post into that position, that temporary assignment, who have no intention or ability in some cases to fill the needs of that temporary assignment. And we can do that multiple times over, which means we can backfill that assignment in some cases upwards of 4 or 5 times before we actually find an incumbent who is able to fulfill the operational needs of that temporary assignment, which creates not only an expense associated with the benefits and entitlements under the collective agreement for all of those individuals who are on paper associated with that assignment, but not in reality stepping into the shoes of the operational needs of that role, but also an administrative burden in terms of the management of who actually owns the assignment at the end of the day, given the number of people who can be attached to a single assignment.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Well, thank you, Mr. McEwen.
Thank you for
Appreciate
the
your
opportunity.
time and your information.
Point of personal privilege. May I have a point of personal privilege?
Yes,
I just want to say, I'm not trying to deny my roots, like, you know, the crop pro 3 times, whatever. I just didn't want the focus to be on who signed the contract, or the charter rather.
Fair
I
enough.
wasn't denying my role.
And that's, it was just a little bit of extra information.
Yeah.
As opposed to anything germane to the conversation.
It's
So
my-
I'm not accusing you.
That was my point.
There is no accusation for you to deny.
I think it probably is a positive point of personal privilege. Trustee McMurphy, I think it was intended to be complimentary and a comment on your history. No, I didn't say that. And neither did Mr. McEwen. Thank you, Mr. McEwen. We'll turn now to our second presentation from Ms. Lynn Phillips, the Vancouver Island South Horse Council of BC. And again, Ms. Phillips, I think you heard my guidance about the 5-minute limit and questions thereafter, and that the board typically does not deal with the substantive issue at the same meeting. So if you would like to proceed, we're all ears.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for allowing us to come and speak with you on something that's so divergent from what you normally talk about at these meetings. So I'm Linda Phillips. I'm an equestrian here in Central Saanich, and I live just down the road from Stellies Secondary. I'm calling in from stolen land of the Sartlip Nation. I live right across the street from Sartlip, and I think about that every day when I'm out and about using our shared resources. My partner in crime tonight is Claire Vesey. Claire is on the phone. I don't think you can see her. Claire, can you introduce yourself?
Claire Vesey. I'm Regional Director for Horse Council BC.
So I'm not Horse Council BC, that's Claire's role, and I am a citizen at large that rides horses all over the place. That helps to separate us. We can go through to the next slide, please. So when I originally put this slide presentation together, I was hoping we would talk for about 15 minutes. I know that we only have 5, so I'm hoping you've all seen the slide presentation or at least have access to the deck, because I'm going to advance quickly through the slides, but it should have enough wayfinding for you that if you have questions throughout or after the presentation, we can talk about those things if you want to follow up. We share some similar concerns and hopes. That would be on the next slide. And I have plugged a little horse and rider there by the school. Just obviously my bias is showing. We can jump through the next slide. And this is where Stellies Secondary comes in. And I'd like to focus on slide 5, please. So in the context of where Stellies is situated and where I'm situated, Central Saanich is home to so many horse boarding facilities, horse riding facilities, and homes that just happen to have horses on them. And this is an unofficial graphic showing you just a few that are peppered around the location of Stellies Secondary. So this is not census data. This is anecdotal based on my personal knowledge. And we don't seem to have a survey, a live survey or a count of horse boarding, horse facilities, and horse owners around Central Saanich. So please bear with me that this is anecdotal. But obviously Stellies is smack dab in the middle of a whole lot of ALR, and within the ALR are equestrian properties and facilities. And then of course we've got Centennial Park, and a lot of those trails were established by equestrians in the 1980s. And unfortunately, we struggle with lack of easements or safe access to the trail system, crossing what are now becoming major thoroughfares for traffic. We can skip through to the next slide. And the road safety slide, please. There we go. So some of the issues that come up for us as equestrians, not just access, but also road safety. So we use the same road system as everybody else, and we are also vulnerable road users. That is a mouthful, bear with me. Vulnerable road users are basically anybody that is not inside the safe bubble of a motor vehicle. So as you can imagine, our mode of transportation has a mind and reactions and fears. And because of where Stellies is situated, it used to be that we could take the Willow Way Trail, cross this crazy road that has become Wallace, and then ride through Stellies Secondary to get to the multi-use pathway in front of the Saanich Fairgrounds and get access to the Centennial Park and the trail system there. Now we are on the edge of Wallace Road, which has a very narrow shoulder. Even bicycles struggle with that. Very, very infrequently will you get a 2-meter passing, and motorists tend to speed, not slow down when they see horses. So that's some of the issues we're dealing with. If we can bump to the next slides, please. And these are just pictures off of Google Maps talking about the exit from Willow Way Trail and the shoulders we're dealing with the, the ditches on each side and the very narrow pathways for us to traverse. And there's no crossing, no official crossing from Willow Way either. So we're forced to go all the way up to the 4-way intersection at Wallace and Stellies and try and make it through a 4-way stop. And next slides, please. Again, there's a picture of the Polo Park, and that is the access that equestrians would have taken. And next slide. And that's the 4-way stop. And Centennial Park is, of course, farther out the block from there. And we can just bump through the next slide there. That's a slide about road safety statistics. So back to what we're talking about is very narrow shoulders, no safe system separation or protective barriers for motor vehicle traffic. And let's be honest, 50 kilometers an hour is the posted speed, and most motorists do 10 plus above that within a margin. There's a ditch on the east side and an uncontrolled 4-way stop at Stellies and Wallace. And I mean uncontrolled for equestrians if we're trying to get through there. And the next couple of slides, please. So what we're going to do is point ourselves to 5 potential creative solutions for mutual safety and access. And this is us blue skying the options from an equestrian perspective. So next slide, slide 13, lucky 13. So we came up with some options, and we're just going to throw them out there to you, and you just mull them over, just think about them. One of the options is to consider allowing equestrian access during school breaks. So when you don't expect there to be any students, then that unofficial trail through the property could be open to equestrians as well as other users. We can install signage informing equestrians that they have to dismount when they enter the property. That's another option. So if the concern is about equestrians riding through the property and creating a safety hazard for students or student motorists on the property, then we can reduce that by having equestrians dismount and walk their horse through the trail and back out. And next slide, please. We could also consider having equestrians install mounting blocks at the 2 access points, so one at Stellies and one at Wallace. And the point of the mounting blocks is to create a safe mounting and dismounting option that increases safety for equestrians as well as anybody else in the surround, and would also give us an opportunity to stop and pick up any manure if that becomes an issue. We could then provide rakes and a barrel. So that whole system sort of goes together, the mounting, dismounting blocks, the barrels and the forks. Part of what happens to equestrians on trails and road systems is there is no safe place to mount and dismount. So once you're up there, you stay there. So if we could provide ourselves that safety option, then we can dismount safely, collect any manure and put it away. And then the last option would really be that potentially manure for soil enhancement can be used in the Stellies secondary garden program. Slide 15 is what we think are some mutual benefits to the creative solutions. And I really do think, and so does Claire, and so does the wider equestrian community in Central Saanich, Everybody wants to find a creative way to find these mutual benefits for each other and not to get into an us versus them situation. We want everybody to be safe, including obviously students, but there are plenty of students who are also horse riders and equestrians, and plenty of teachers in the district as well who are. So if we need to come back to the table with more creative solutions or more dialogue, there will be a lot of people who can help us with those conversations. And the last slide is really just Claire and I thanking you for your time and for your consideration of our community, and we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips, and I do agree that your presentation is a bit atypical for what we usually experience, so thank you for your information. Trustees, are there any questions for clarification on Ms. Phillips' presentation? Trustee McMurphy.
Through you to staff, can you remind us why we closed the trail? I was concerned about safety or something.
Yeah, the concerns were related to student safety and also traffic safety, because the majority of the passage through is along the fire lane and then through the parking lot. And then the other concern was our grounds crews were having to go out regularly to clean up manure off the property. The school was calling us out to clean that up. So those were the primary concerns.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Phillips.
Thank you so much.
Right. You're welcome to stay and watch our proceedings or take your leave, whichever you think is best.
I'll take my leave. Thank you so much for all your time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night. Moving then to item 6 of the agenda, which is the chair's report. And since we've just finished spring break, augmented by a long Easter weekend, I welcome us all back to the effort. It's been unseasonably cool, but there were a few bright spots for most of us, I think. Whether you dipped your toes into some travel or remained at home with yard work and caught up on tasks, spent time with family, I trust it proved relaxing, that we all return refreshed for the final months of the school year. I know that the Provincial Health Office has relaxed conditions for the system and for our schools on return from spring break, and I believe that Superintendent Eberwin will be speaking further to that in his report. Immediately upon returning from spring break on April 4, Superintendent Eberwin and I participated in a Ministry of Education call related to the Framework for Enhanced Student Learning peer review process. This principally consisted of various teams discussing the plan, the expectations, the pilot projects, and conclusions, and it will be an ongoing process. On April 14, last Thursday, I was invited to attend the grand opening of Salon 63 at ILC, along with Assistant Superintendent McKenzie and Secretary Treasurer Reid. And the purpose of this was to, not for me, but someone else got a haircut. The purpose of this was to celebrate the first full class in 2 years in this program, which of course is operated jointly with Vancouver Island University. And a number of guests were treated to cuts, as Trustee McMurphy's implied, and to scalp massages. I give my personal thanks to a student named Nikela. I was her first client, apparently, and we got on famously, and she gave me a scalp massage with essential oils. Someone to the left of me got himself a haircut, and Mr. McKenzie himself also got a scalp massage. So I was pleased to be able to attend on behalf of the board and to encourage the students and the school. And thanks to Principal de Klerk for the invitation. The BC School Trustees Association Annual General Meeting commences tomorrow through Sunday in Vancouver in person. Vice Chair Vanwell and I will be attending. Superintendent Eberwin will be attending as a guest as well. The theme is From Grief to Medicine, Moving Forward with Good Hearts, which is a deep Indigenous focus. And of course, the AGM will also address resolutions which are coming before the board later, and the election of the board of directors. Moving to the preliminary budget for 2022 and 2023, at a special meeting on April 7, the board extended time for consultation on this, including the Budget Advisory Committee and community meeting dates, with anticipated adoption of the budget in June. This has been necessitated by the implications of unfunded inflationary costs, decreased revenue in certain enrollment areas, a $400,000 estimated cost pressure resulting from the recent amendments to the Employment Standards Act, providing for 5 days annual sick leave for staff, and other points. But these are principal concerns and will require consideration by the board of further information, priorities, and community views as we seek to adjust to the tune of at least $1 million. We want to pay particular attention to the priorities of our new strategic plan and how they fit with budget development. And we will also want to consider our advocacy position with respect to the ministry. And I believe that this will be considered further in the Finance, Facilities and Technology report this evening. On a high note, we remember that the board approved our new strategic plan at our March 16, 2022 meeting. It's now on the website, and limited hard copies will be forthcoming shortly. And I have one here. I may have the only one. I don't know if that's showing up on camera, but there we are. There's the front. It comes both in the hard copies. It will come in the booklet form with graphics and some Sinchothan text on each page. It sets out the importance of the plan, the 4 goals, or the 4 themes, of course, of literacy, Indigenous student success, mental health and wellness, and global citizenship. Talks about operationalizing the plan, and closes with a message from each of the superintendent and the chair. It's also on the website, and Trustee Van Well and I were pleased to present it to POPAX last Thursday evening. This is a usable, viable, and operational plan aligning or intended to align our decisions with respect to budget, programming, staffing, facilities, and school planning with these priorities. And after adopting it last month, the board also moved a motion formally thanking the Strategic Plan Advisory Committee and others involved under the leadership of Superintendent Eberlin. But I want to take this opportunity as the first meeting after that business was completed to thank the committee, to thank the consultant, to thank the superintendent, to thank our communities, our staffs, the Indigenous community, our broader community, our students, and schools for participating in the consultation process which led to this. It's a plan of which the board and the district will be very proud and which will be very helpful. And finally, on another high note, just yesterday, April 19, the province announced funding for approximately 400 childcare spaces in Greater Victoria, including our application for 84 spaces at our nature-based early learning center on White Road. This property was donated to the district in 1873 with the condition that it be used for public school purposes, but for a number of reasons, including its size and utility and neighborhood use, boards of the past found it difficult to deal with. But for the past 5 years, under the leadership of Secretary Treasurer Reid, the district the boards have embarked on an extensive consultation process with the community, the neighborhood, and family members of the donor. And in October 2018, the board accepted the committee's recommendation to examine the feasibility of an early learning center on that property. In October 2021, the board approved the application for funding to the BC Child Care and New Spaces Fund for the project in partnership with Beacon Community Services. And that is what has now been approved. Other than construction, it's now a reality. And I want to thank executive staff and principally Secretary Treasurer Reid for his leadership and tenacity and skill in spearheading and piloting this process for the past years. In fact, Mr. Reid was interviewed on CBC this morning with respect to it, so we got a little bit of deserved publicity that way. We look forward to moving forward with the assistance of Beacon as we continue to develop the plans for this facility with increased student-centered care and learning in our district. Thank you, and we'll turn to the superintendent's report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My report this evening does not include a slide deck, which is normally what I do. It's an oral report this evening, and I want to thank you for your very comprehensive report, Mr. Chair, on a number of topics. I do want to pick up on the return to school after spring break that you briefly mentioned in your report. It goes without saying that the last 2+ years have been a constant series of adjustments and turns and twists in terms of how we serve our student community and work with the broader community to provide an outstanding educational experience for our students. Once again, we changed practice in some respects after coming back from spring break. Dr. Henry announced before spring break that some of the restrictions would be changed and relaxed due to the current health conditions in our community. And once again, our community rose to the occasion and has dealt with the changes very respectfully. One of the significant changes coming back after spring break was the removal of mandatory masking for students and staff in K-12. It now became optional to wear a mask. While we haven't done a specific head count on a daily basis, approximately 10 to 15% of people are wearing masks in schools these days. But we are still following other health protocols such as maximizing distance wherever possible, ensuring that we wash our hands, stay home when we're not feeling well. To date, I have not heard of a single incident of any chastising or disrespectful behavior towards people either wearing or not wearing masks. And that's a tribute to our community and the work that goes on in our schools to ensure that they are safe, healthy places for everybody to work and learn. And we will continue to adjust as necessary should conditions warrant that and should we receive different advice from the province. But I have every confidence in the world that this community will continue to respond in a way that is practical and reasonable and ensuring a safe environment for everybody. I also want to make attention or draw attention to the board to the annual Skills Canada BC competition, and there is a small write-up in the School of Successes, and we have an article on a brand new website that I encourage you to go and read as well. Another outstanding showing for Saanich students. We had students in both middle and secondary schools compete. There were medals awarded all over the place for Saanich students in many of the categories. Just to give you some numbers in terms of the breadth of participation in this Skills Canada event. It happens every year from February to March, where Skills Canada hosts regional trades and technology competitions throughout our province and for that matter throughout the country. In our region, our students compete with students not only from Saanich, but from Souk, Victoria School District, Gulf Islands, and the Cowichan Valley, and they can participate at both the middle and secondary level. This year, we had 624 middle school participants in the competition. From North Saanich, we had 384 participants. Royal Oak saw 95 and Bayside 145 participants. In these events, students design, prototype, build, test, and iterate gravity vehicles, wind turbine blades, and spaghetti bridges. They not only learn valuable skills and have a lot of fun, but they learn to work together and to use their math and science and other skills to participate in an activity that is not only rewarding, but can open up avenues for them further on in not only their high school career, but in their life afterwards. Some of the results that we received at the middle school level, We won gold medals in gravity vehicles at Bayside and spaghetti bridges at Bayside. Silver medals were won in the gravity vehicle from Royal Oak and also the spaghetti bridge from Royal Oak. And we won a bronze medal also from Bayside in the spaghetti bridge competition. There is a gravity vehicle event video on our website. I would encourage you to go and look at it. If you want to put a smile on your face and see kids excited, that's something to go and check out. We've also had success at the secondary level. I don't have those numbers in front of me this evening, but it is a testament to our teachers, to our career advisors, to our trades teachers, to everybody in our schools that sees the value in participating in an event like this. That yes, I guess you could call it a competition, but it really is more of an exhibition of trades and talents and encouraging students to explore skills that they might not otherwise be doing. So a great positive event for us to continue to celebrate here in Saanich. But with those two items, that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the superintendent on his report? Thank you. We'll move then to committee reports. I know that the school successes are contained in the board pack. First, the Education Directions Committee with Committee Chair McMurphy.
Thank you, Chair. I have one item for recommendation. You'll note on the report that we had a presentation on literacy intervention with an Indigenous focus. And we had two items for discussion, the pride flag and the participation of the district in the Pride Parade in September. And, pardon? Oh, so June, right.
That's okay.
Close to
summer, yeah.
And Director Hunter gave us an update on the Indigenous course requirement as well. But the item for recommendation is from Assistant Superintendent Paul McKenzie, and I would move that the board approve the academy fees and programs of choice for the 2022-23 school year.
Thank you. Second, Trustee Stark.
And the fee schedule is attached. I don't have anything to add. I don't know if the Assistant Superintendent wants to make any comments.
Through you, Chair, the only amendment that I would make is that what was omitted from our Ed Directions conversation was around the Institute for Global Solutions. And I just clarified with the principal at Claremont that it was in fact discussed. It is included in the report. There were no fee changes to that. This past year, there was a reduction due to the inability of the group to go on some field trips due to COVID. But the fee structure will be as noted from previous years.
And do you remember, so it's a 175?
That's correct, yes.
Is there any further discussion on Trustee McMurphy's committee report? Sorry, on the motion. All right. I'll put the question. All in favor of the motion to adopt the fee schedule? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. Trustee McMurphy?
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Moving then to Finance, Facilities and Technology, Committee Chair Van Wel.
Thank you, Chair. We had one presentation, and it was by Erica Letchford from Ready Energy Solutions, and it was for the funding for electric buses. We were she let us know that we had been approved to replace two of our buses this year. They were approved for diesel buses, but we are going to actually get electric buses. So there is some funding discrepancy for that. We will be getting other funding that is targeted towards the conversion to electric. And but with that, we have a shortfall of $178,820, of which we will be applying for a CIB loan for the difference. And it was noted that the repayment for this loan is made from the gas savings that we use. And future plans are to replace two buses per year for a total of 8 years. Did I cover everything, Secretary Treasurer Reid? Perfect. Okay. Great, so then I will move to the items for recommendation. I will start with the capital bylaw plan, the 2022-23 capital bylaw plan. The committee recommends, and I, Trustee Van, will move that the board approve the first reading of the capital bylaw number 2022-23 CPSD 6301.
Trustee McMurphy, second.
Thank you. Yeah, the board approved the 2022-23 capital plan submission at the June 2021 board meeting. And the ministry response was received on March 15th and with the requirement that we adopt this bylaw.
Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried.
Right. Okay. The committee recommends, and I, Trustee Van Wel, move that the board approve the second reading of the capital plan bylaw number 2022-23 CPSD 6301.
Second by Trustee McMurphy. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.
The motion to read for a third time that the board approve the reading of the capital plan bylaw number 2022-23 CPSD 6301 at this board meeting for a third time.
And this, we require passage unanimously to be able to proceed to adopt.
Yes.
Second by Trustee McMurphy. Any discussion? All in favor? Motion is carried unanimously.
All right. Third and final reading of the capital plan bylaw number 2022-23 CPSD 6301, that the board approve the third reading, pass and adopt capital project bylaw number 2022-23 CPSD 6301.
Seconded by Trustee McMurphy. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you. So second, we have the annual facilities grant. The committee recommends, and I, Trustee Van Wel, move that the board approve the 2022-23 annual facility grant as presented.
Trustee McMurphy, second. Trustee Van Wel, the motion.
Yeah, Director Lum provided us with a very comprehensive breakdown of routine maintenance of the school facilities and for projects regularly required to extend the life of the existing facilities. And there is a table that breaks this down and for the cost totaling $2,113,673.
Further discussion, Trustee? Question? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion's carried.
Okay. The childcare spaces and lease and license renewals. The committee recommends, and I, Trustee Van Wel, move that the board approve the implementation of the new license agreement template for the new renewal of childcare spaces agreements.
Second by Trustee McMurphy. Van Wel.
Let me just find that's sorry. Right. Okay. So this motion is to recommend the implementation of a new license agreement template with childcare operators reflecting the recent changes to the School Act. This including the board will support principles of Indigenous reconciliation in childcare and inclusive childcare. In December 2021, a letter was sent to each of the operators advising of the changes to the contractual relationship to be reflected in the new agreements. All operators submitted their program proposals reflecting their commitment to supporting the principles of Indigenous reconciliation in childcare and inclusive childcare. They've also committed to working in partnership with the district in the development of programs that are responsive to community engagement. So with the, in terms of the rates, the rates will be holding for this year, and we'll do some incremental, there'll be a little bit each year for the next 5 years. Couldn't find a word for that.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Call the question then. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried.
Right. Okay, sorry. We have a lot in FF&T this week. It's all right. So we have okay, so report from the Budget Advisory Committee. The motion is the committee recommends, and I, Trustee Van, will move that the board protest to the strongest possible terms the changes to the Employment Standards Act not being funded and encourage the BCSTA and VISTA to do the same, and that the board seek a meeting with the Ministry of Education to discuss this matter.
Second, Trustee McMurphy. Trustee Van Wel, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Yeah, so with discussions about and with from the chair's report, the discussion that we had on the $1.2 million shortfall that we will be facing for the next budget, we really feel that the Ministry of Education should fund the shortfalls for us.
Is there further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried.
Thanks. I have one more. The committee recommends, and I, Trustee Van Wel, move that the Secretary Treasurer prepare alternatives for balancing the 2022-23 budget for the next Budget Advisory Committee meeting.
Second. Trustee McMurphy. Trustee Van Wel.
Again, because we are facing a $1.2 million shortfall, we are asking that our Secretary Treasurer look at all options for us for the coming.
1 million.
So, oh, is it? Sorry, I apologize. It's just 1 million. That's much better, at least. Yes. So looking for alternatives for us. And
1 million if we do all the other stuff we don't want to do.
yeah.
Further discussion on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried.
And we had a few items for information. We had our monthly fiscal forecast, and number 2, the business company, our Secretary Treasurer Reid informed us that the business company dissolution was went ahead and it was completed. Yeah. And that's it for my report.
Thank you. Are you smiling behind that, Trustee McMurphy? Thank you, Trustee Van Wel, for your report. We'll move on to the Human Resources Report, and Committee Chair Selzer has a motion that was referred to this meeting from the in-camera.
Thank you, Chair. The committee has one item for recommendation. The committee recommends, and I, Trustee Selzer, move that staff prepare a report on current retirement events and acknowledgements and make recommendations to acknowledge retirements in all staff groups.
Thank you. Second, Trustee Van Wel, do you wish to speak to your motion, Trustee Selzer?
The committee discussed how the teachers retiring in School District 63 have a very robust celebration thanks to the Saanich Teachers Association, and noted that the retirements in the other staff areas are not as celebrated. So we are looking to correct that and make sure that all employees feel appreciated upon their retirement.
Thank you. Trustee McMurphy.
I have a possible amendment, but I don't have the motion right in front of me, so I'm not sure if this is correct or not. I would say that staff be requested to be committed to consult with employee groups and prepare a report.
Excuse me, I just want to make sure I have this. that staff consult with employee groups.
Staff be requested to consult with employee groups and prepare.
All right. Is there a seconder for that amendment? Trustee Stelk, do you wish to speak to that?
Well, it's just kind of probably would happen anyway, but I just don't want us to be riding off on our own horse without consulting the rest of the Ramada.
Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Put the question on the amendment. All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Now back to debate on the motion as amended, if any. Trustee McMurphy?
Well, yeah, I hope that, I mean, I really think that the STA is to be, and the SAA are to be complimented for the work that they have done for countless years in terms of hosting excellent retirement celebrations annually, usually in the late spring. And I hope this motion is not interpreted in any way as being, you know, that somehow the board is finding fault with the present practice. I think the intent is to make sure we're not leaving anybody out in the category of recognizing long service.
Thank you. And I wish to speak to the motion as well. And I will support the motion. I confirm my view of Trustee McMurphy's comments. This is by implication appreciation to the STA and to the SAA for the work that they do in providing these kinds of celebrations. And it's also, I think, we acknowledge, perhaps only by implication, that teachers often find some of the best in their retirement from the celebrations at their particular school and site and venue. At the same time, the intent of this is to recognize that the district should have a role different from the STA, different from the administrators, and different from the schools in acknowledging the work and the contribution of our employees. And so it's supplementary and it's complementary as opposed to competitive or critical. And it's, again, I think a well-intended and a supportive motion. I don't see anyone else on the list, so I'll put the question. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? And the motion is carried. Thank you. Anything further from you, Trustee Silzer?
Nothing further. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We'll move then to the Policy Development Committee with Committee Chair Stelk.
Thank you. So we have one item that we discussed, which was Policy 28, Core French. And so as we work our way through the new policy booklet, when we had done programs of choice and sort of not created it, but refined it, Core French was eliminated on the understanding it would come back, and it did come back, and we talked about it, and it is in the, there's operational parts in Admin Procedure 214, but there was nothing in policy setting out what had been there before with respect to the Core French is a foundational program that's offered in K through 8. So with a few little changes to the original Core French policy, the committee, I'd like to move the motion. The committee recommends, and I, Trustee Stelk, move that the board confirm its consideration of Policy 28 Core French as proposed.
Second?
I don't know what that motion means.
I'm sorry?
I'm not sure what that motion means.
Mr. Reid, can you help us with this?
Yeah, this was a procedural change that we made to align with the new policy manual, in that it basically, the policy manual says that when a policy change is under consideration by the Board of Education, that a notice of motion will be made by a trustee, providing notice that the change is being considered and will go for public consultation. So the purpose of this motion is for the board to confirm that this is a change that is under consideration by the board.
Shouldn't we just be giving notice of motion and sending it out for consideration?
Yeah, well, following this motion, then trustee Stelk would provide notice of motion.
Yeah, I just don't understand why we need both.
Because a notice of motion is not a debatable, is not debatable.
Oh, I see what you're doing.
Yeah, so this provides for a board decision to move forward with the consultation.
A decision versus just being informed.
Okay, got it.
So there were changes made and the changed core French is going out.
So this is the process that we've decided that we have to do rather than just discussing the notice of motion, we have to discuss the consideration.
I recall.
Because the notice of motion is in.
Yeah.
Well, with that explanation, is there a seconder for the motion? Trustee Gifford. Trustee Stelk, anything further on the motion?
I don't think so. They, it'll go out to the partners and it's, what the core French is, the new core French policy. And then we'll have, it will come back to us in 2 months for our policy.
All right. Any further discussion, trustees? All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried.
Yeah, so now, yes, we do the notice of motion. I, trustee Stelk, provide notice that at the June 15th, 2022 public meeting of the Board of Education, I will move the following motion, that policy 28 core French be approved.
Thank you. And anything further in the report?
Well, just future agenda items, got a number of things coming up. One of them, which is transportation. There have been some discussion in March following a presentation regarding busing and the transportation policy. So that may come up, and also the Centaucan language is going to be considered at the next, in conjunction with the new strategic plan at the next committee meeting. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Thank you, trustee Stelk. Moving to item 13, reports from trustee representatives. Let's start with you, please, trustee Van Wel, on BCSTA business.
Yes, thank you very much.
How you propose to handle the
So
resolutions?
I will, so I'll start off with this survey.
The survey?
Yeah, I'll start off with the survey. So let me just get out my email here. So because of the new Indigenous grad requirements, the ministry is in an engagement phase of the process and is looking to collect feedback. The board of directors of the BCSTA met with the ministry's engagement team, and they had some very good discussions. They are aware of concerns being raised and are eager to hear feedback from boards. And so they have put a survey out to boards to be completed by April 26th. And then they'll be taking these and submitting a formal response with all the information they get from boards. I met with Director of Instruction Hunter. She helped me out with some of the questions, and I've included those in the package, and I sent them out to trustees a couple of days ago just to review. And I'm just wondering if there's any feedback on it, if there's anything anybody would like to add to it. If not, I can go ahead and submit these answers to the BCSTA.
So if there's no objection to the survey as prepared. By the board, it
Yes.
will go in the present form. So this is the opportunity to amend that if
Exactly.
any reason to. Trustees, what say you about that, if anything?
I think we're just, it's early days.
Yes.
And the survey was very general.
Yes.
And
Very.
I think we're just dipping our toes in the water and getting ready to learn to swim.
Thank you.
All right.
I think
Have my
you
answer.
have the board's blessing
I do.
on that.
Yes. And then we have, as Dunford mentioned, him and I will be attending the AGM starting tomorrow, and we have 15 motions that are going to be coming up for us to vote on. Again, those were included in the package. And I mean, I went through them. A lot of them seemed quite all very straightforward. But I was just wondering if the trustees had any concerns about any of them that they wanted to let me know about before we attend the meeting.
So just to clarify, if I may, Trustee Van Well, when it comes to voting,
Yes.
you and I are carrying some sort of weighted votes.
No, actually, the only weighted votes that we have are the elections for the board of directors. When it comes to the motions, we have individual votes, but because you and I are only going, I thought I would get the feedback from the other trustees, just in case there's anything that they had any concerns about.
Okay, otherwise you and I will vote.
Otherwise, you and I, yeah, we'll be voting on our own. Yeah.
All right, trustees, anyone want to say something? Trustee Still?
It's not a concern, it's more of a comment. I noticed the motion for Indigenous representation on boards of education. And we had passed a motion at the last meeting that the board consult with the nation regarding their views on within nation participation in our district. Staff, the requested proposal is the consultation might be initiated. So it might be something to share with the BCSTA, because this is a narrower, it's just the Ministry of Education and FNESC. So they're provincial, they're both big provincial bodies, and I'm just wondering, whether there could be some, maybe just a comment with respect to allowing some flexibility for districts to consult with their own nations, rather than have some kind of general template from above.
Sure.
Or even an amendment, perhaps, Trustee Still may arise. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything further on the resolutions? All right, thank you. Thank you, Trustee Benoit.
Thank you. Thank you for your feedback, Trustee Still.
And we'll move then to item 14, correspondence. There are six letters, trustees. Any discussion on any? All right, we'll move, if you're ready, to question period. For our partners and guests and public, if any, Mr. McEwen.
My question that I have right now is would you like to come? There's a webinar next Wednesday evening. I've sent everybody here an email about it, and it's renaming your school as an act of reconciliation. So it's a BCTF webinar about changing the name of the school to be part of an act of reconciliation. So I've passed on the information, I've passed on the invitation, and so my question would be, would you like to come?
Are you looking for a commitment?
I'm not looking for a commitment right now at all, no.
But you want us to know about it?
I want you to know.
Think about it.
Can I tell my Quilset story if I come?
You can tell it now, Trustee McMurphy, if you wish.
One of my claims of honor.
Thank you, Mr. McEwen. Anything further from the STA?
Well, now she's leaving us hanging, so
Oh,
maybe I
when
should ask what is the
Quilset
story?
when Quilset was built, it was originally going to be called something like Panorama Quilset. I can't forget, there was some English word with Quilset. And I said, this is the only school that would have an Indigenous name. So let's just have the Indigenous name. And so it's just Quilset, not English Quilset. So I'm very proud of that still.
And rightfully so.
I didn't know that.
It's a long time ago.
It was. Trustee Silzer, are you looking for the floor?
No? Thank you.
No, yes, I didn't think so because we're
I
looking.
do see a hand up. I can't.
Michael McEwen, I think.
Is that you, Michael?
I think it's Michelle.
Michelle, somebody, I think.
Yeah.
Have you seen the participant list, Jason, if you go into the meeting?
Yeah, it's Michelle.
Hello, is it all right to go ahead?
Yes, please.
I'm just here as a teacher from Stellies, and I was curious about the answer that Director Robin Reed gave to the question earlier about the notice of intent to end practice. After she spoke, I went online and I was looking at the successful candidates list this year and noticed that there was only one position that has had 3 successful candidates listed. All the others were well under that. And at the bargaining table, the employer identified that cases where there are 4 or 5 successful candidates are incredibly rare. The notice to end practice that has been served on behalf of the board will not prevent this from happening, but will prevent many members who are new or expecting parents from receiving benefits that they would otherwise have received and have been receiving for the better part of 35 years. I'm struggling a little bit with the idea that the notice to end practice will not serve to prevent what the employer wants to prevent, but will claw back on benefits for many new and expecting parents. And in particular, in a time where we're noticing a teacher shortage around British Columbia. A rationale that was given by the employer was around significant cost savings. I'm just curious that it's clear the employer is looking for cost savings, but it seems to be on the backs of new and expecting parents. Does this fit with where our beliefs are being supportive of its employees?
So that's your question? That whether this approach fits with the foundational beliefs of the district?
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone can deal with that today. No takers. Are there any other questions? Trustee McMurphy.
This may be an inappropriate time to ask this question, but in the letters and in the discussion tonight, the focus has been on teachers who are expected. Does this estoppel policy only apply to teachers who are going on mat leave or parental leave, or is it more general than that?
Superintendent, do you know?
I don't have a clearly succinct answer for you. I'd have to confer with Director Reed. She's done the bulk of the research on this topic and has had extensive conversations at the table on this topic. There have been a number of points raised this evening, but there have been a number of points that haven't been raised this evening. And so I'm a little hesitant to jump into the fray without having a wholesome conversation about it.
Trustee Stout.
It seems to me, just following up on Trustee McMurphy's comment, that we perhaps need more information. And this needs to be a discussion that we continue, perhaps at next week's meeting.
I expect it maybe. Thank you. Partners, yes. Are there any other questions before we move on? All right, thank you. Mr. Reed, there's no other businesses submitted, I take it? All right. Trustees, that completes the agenda then. Is there any objection to adjourning at this time? I declare that we are adjourned. Thank you all for your help and contribution this evening.